Hello students, I know you all have lot of interest in the international affairs, and when it comes to India and the neighbors, it is obvious that you have not only interest, you look at the topic also from exams perspective. In our GS paper 2, India and the world, India's relations with the neighboring countries is always important. And in recent years or in recent time, there is lot that has been happening with respect to India's neighborhood. The grand idea shaping is neighborhood first policy. So, in past few weeks, you have seen the articles in the newspaper on Maldives, the change in the government, the position of the government raising eyebrows in India's South Bloc, bringing some sort of uncertainty about the India-Maldives relations. Today, I would like to discuss few things. I want to give you certain line of thought of discussing and understanding the India-Maldives relations. So from exams perspective, when we look at India-Maldives relations, first of all, we have to understand what is the importance of Maldives from the perspective of global geopolitics. So what do you understand by global geopolitics? Global geopolitics is a term which in a most simplistic sense we can understand as the global balance of power. Now, global balance of power is a very regularly used term in international politics which points towards the foreign and the security policies. Sometimes in a dramatic fashion, we can also use the term great games. So, what is the broad theme under which we study a particular issue in international relations? My approach has always been to discuss the issue taking into consideration the world order. So, where are we standing from the perspective of the world order? Obviously, these are the transition times, and the transition times, writes Kenneth Orgenski in his power transition theory, is when the power transitions happen, then it can challenge the peace in the region. So what are we seeing everywhere? We are seeing the power transitions. Power transition means the decline of US hegemony and the rise of China. And what is interesting in the power dimension present, power transitions today, the interesting part is that there is another important player, and that is India. What makes this game interesting, complex, is the multipolar nature of the game, because it is not just the current politics is not just shaped by US, China. India has emerged as a key player in international politics and at times symbolically called as the net security provider. So India and China, the next door neighbor, having confrontations in the past, having the lingering disputes, and at present the competition. How to explain India-China relations? So I believe the three C's, the confrontation, the competition, and the contestation. Had it been pre-Galwan time, I would have used the four C's and I would have included cooperation, but right now we do not see that cooperation. So, how should we look at the current domestic developments in Maldives, which means India's neighborhood, which means India's immediate neighborhood in the maritime domain and not the extended neighborhood like Southeast Asia or West Asia. So, if any development takes place in India's immediate neighborhood, it is very obvious that we should watch the development carefully, as well as we have to be keenly observing the developments that take place in the region. So now let us take the story forward. So what is the story? The story is the domestic changes in Maldives. So when I say Maldives, I mean in our immediate neighborhood. Now, why it is becoming all the more important? Because the focus of international politics and India's foreign policy has shifted from the land to the sea. So gone are the days when India was just a continental nation. No nation can become powerful ignoring the maritime sphere. So maybe in the past, Maldives may not be as important as Pakistan and the developments there. But today I can say it is in no way less important. It is very, very important because the focus is now on the maritime domain. And why? Because if you compare India and China, China may have some advantage in the continental sphere, but India has huge advantage in the maritime sphere because of its location. So what has been China's policy? The China's policy has been to consistently reduce and minimize India's edge in the maritime sphere. After understanding the perspective, let me cut the story short. And the story right now is the change in the government in Maldives and what is a cause of concern, the coalition that has come to power and the leader that has come to power has India out campaign or the foreigners out campaign. That has been a cause of concern. And as reported, they have asked or they have always had this position in their election campaigns that once coming to power, they will not let the foreign troops on the land of Maldives. So this is actually the story. So now from where the story begins, we have to go deeper, and you know that India has been a civilizational state. By civilizational state means India's influence has been beyond the borders and Maldives have been under India's sphere of influence. India and Maldives have interacted in the past also. If we talk about the modern history, Maldives, like India, was also the British colony. Now, after independence, there has been a lack of stability in Maldives. Maldives has seen the period of dictatorship, and it is to be noted that even during the period of dictatorship under Gayoom, India and Maldives relations were not bad. Often it is believed that democracies form a zone of peace, and if democracy come in the region, the relations among the neighbors improve. But unfortunately, that has not been the case as far as India and its neighbors is concerned. So when democracy came to the region, we have started witnessing greater problems and instability. So Maldives has been showing a pattern, and the pattern is government coming to power, destabilization, changes, but somehow Maldives can be described as a fragile democracy. And as you know, that with Chinese interests increasing in Indian Ocean and India-China contestations increasing around the world, we have seen more interference and involvement of China in the domestic affairs of Indian neighbors, be it Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh or Maldives. There is involvement of China in the domestic elections. Joseph Nye has called this type of role of the authoritarian states like China and Russia as sharp power, using the power of propaganda against liberal democracies to weaken the powers of the democratic countries. So that is a part of a game, that how has been democracies in a small post-colonial states. So rightly often pointed out that in a small post-colonial states, the states have been more a clientelist states. Clientelist state means the ruling party has been, or the representative has been, more like a client or a puppet of any major power. So there is a game where both India and China, they want their favorites in the in this on the throne. So there is a game of throne, and the present elections show that China got an edge, and that is a cause of concern. And China has got an edge is evident from the fact that the person who has come to power, their electoral agenda was India out campaign. Now, should India be concerned? Answer is yes. As far as the national security is concerned, we should never take the things lightly. But what does the political wisdom show? Can Maldives afford to ignore India? I will say no, because the saying goes, you can change your friends, but you cannot change your neighbors. So, Maldives does not have a freedom to ignore India. They may have a freedom to engage China. And what we have seen is even anti-India politicians, when they come to power after some time, when the electoral environment cool down, and they have to get back to the basics. They cannot ignore the neighbor like India. And India is one such country which has always tried to develop and to help the neighboring countries with our vision of Sagar, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, or our cosmopolitan vision. Fine. So, India has never allowed itself to be ignored. Neither we have allowed itself nor we will let ourselves to be ignored. And the wisdom says that even Maldives cannot ignore India. So the right time is wait and just watch, because ultimately Maldives cannot afford to ignore India. So what India can do, just be in the game. Let see what Maldives' next moves are. At the same time, India should not do anything that impacts our image in the neighborhood, which we have cultivated in the recent past. It took lot of time for India to counter the big brother syndrome, and with the initiatives like Neighborhood First, Sagar, Blue Economy, we have tried to project India's power of attraction and India's soft power. So we should not be doing any such thing that impacts India's image. Let us be patient, because patience is also very, very important. And it can be said that in politics, if speed is silver, then patience is golden. This is what I can say. So, in short, what I can say is, despite India Out campaign, despite some tough stance the government of Maldives is taking or will take in some initial months, the laws of foreign policy and international politics make it very evident that they have no option to ignore India, and at the same time, India should also consistently consolidate its soft power image. Hopefully, you have understood some points to think about India and Maldives relations and watch for it. Now, through the PPT, I would like to share certain facts. This PPT will also be available on our Telegram channel. You can download the PPT for further notes if you want. So, let us start. So this is the Maldives. You can see the southern western part of Indian Ocean if you see with respect to India. Some basic facts about the Maldives: that it is an island ocean. It is located 400 kilometers southwest of India. It is made up of coral islands, and the group of islands is called atoll. The significant population is Sunni Islam, and I need to tell you that China is not the only problem or elephant in the room here. Even Maldives had good relations with Pakistan in the past, and another cause of concern is the growing Islamization of the Maldivian society. The official language of Maldives is Divehi, and it is a low-lying nation, and in physical terms, it's a lowland area, and it is predicted that by the end of the century, Maldives will be submerged place because of global warming. So, Maldivians have little time to just allow themselves in this great power politics, and they should be thinking, they should have an approach how they can ensure the future of the people in Maldives. They actually have some more important questions to deal rather than allowing themselves to become the pawn in the great game. So these are the atolls, and this is Malé, and India is also involved in the infrastructure projects. So what I was discussing, why in the news? In the news because the new leader Mohammad Moizu, in his public address after defeating the pro-India president Soleh, fired a shot across New Delhi by stating that he would ask foreign troops to leave. Fine. So the newly elected Moizu from Progressive Alliance, which is a coalition of Progressive Party of Maldives and People's National Congress, is considered as pro-China. That has been the reason that our security establishment has been concerned. So as mentioned in the paper, he stated that he would ask foreign troops to leave the country. Fine. And when you say foreign troops, it means India, because India is the only country which maintains the foreign troops or army personnel, but they are there to look after the helicopters which are deployed. So now what is this helicopter issue? So India has given two Dhruv advanced light helicopters to Maldives in 2010 and 2015. One of them is in Addu Atoll, which is towards the south, and the other is Hanimadhu, which is in the north. But they are not, like India doesn't have a policy of having any type of military bases, and they are given only for humanitarian purposes, for rescue operations. Fine. So these are the advanced light helicopters which India has given for the security and the humanitarian purposes. Fine. So this is like Hanimadu, one is located here and another towards the Addu Atoll, north and south. Now, as I was telling you that we had an interaction in the past, there was interaction during the time of Rajaraja Chola, then it became independent in 1965 and India was among the first countries to recognize Maldives. Now, for all those who are interested in reading the news related to Maldives, just for their awareness, these are some important parties. Maldivian Democratic Party, the leader is Ibrahim Soli and he's pro-India, and Mohammad Nasheed was also from this party. Progressive Party of Maldives and National People's Congress, they are in coalition, they are supposed to be anti-India and pro-China. Earlier Yamin was in power and now Mohammad Moizu. Fine. So what Maldives have seen? Maldives has seen the power transition and changes in the system from autocracy to multi-party democracy. Then Nasheed's election, lot of politics had happened at that point of time. So India-China great game started, I think, from then itself. Now, what is Maldives' significance for India? Geostrategic, important for India's maritime security, geopolitical in context of China, geoeconomic because of its location on sea lines of communication, India's role as a net security provider, and the regional cooperation. Fine. So this is a idea, like reasons why Maldives is important for India. First of all, it is very closely related to it, and you can say that in recent time China has increased its presence in Indian Ocean and the location of Maldives is very significant. So we have programs like Blue Economy, Sagar, China. For China, this is important because of One Belt, One Road initiative. These are some sea lines of communication for your prelims. We just see that 9-degree channel is near. Channels are between the major through which the ships pass. So Lombok Strait and all from prelims point of view. And this is an area of cooperation. India is the second largest trading partner of Maldives after China. Then very important project, Great Malay Connectivity Project. It is the largest ever project which India is doing in Maldives. We have people to people contact, security, military exercises, culture, tourism, development, cooperation. There has been an inauguration of policing and law enforcement agency which has been set up with the India support. Now a comparative view between India and China is important, where China is also involved in the infrastructure development. They are building a long bridge. India is also building a bridge, but our project is the largest project because it will be connecting the 3 islands, and the total project cost of India is around around 400 million, whereas Chinese project around 200 million. Fine. So this is like Hulhule atoll, from Hulhule to Malé. This is a China bridge, and from Malé to these 3 islands, India is building its bridges. And in the past, some of the major engagements or major supports which India has provided to Maldives: Operation Cactus, when LTT militants were about to capture Maldives, Indian Army has rushed, and then Operation Neer to address Maldives drinking water crisis, and Operation Sanjeevani to help Maldives during the COVID crisis. Those who are interested in reading the involvement of Indian armed forces and their operations, this is a good book by Sushant Singh, that Mission Overseas, what are the daring operations by the Indian military. Fine. So those who want to read further, they can go through this. Now the challenges in India-Maldives relations, of course China, of course radicalization, as well as the climate change, where India and China, India and US, India and Maldives can work together. So what India can do, you can maneuver the domestic divisions, you can target the youth, you can go for not the investment led approach, but the development approach and early completion of the projects. And the grand idea is going to be, of course, Sagar and the neighborhood first policy. These are some important books. Robert D. Kaplan is my most favorite author. You can have some deeper understanding of international politics through his book. You can also see Bertin Linter's book, The Great Game in the East, where he's saying that how from land the frontier is shifting towards the sea. India-Maldives relations, China and Indian Ocean. Fine. So hopefully this particular discussion is of some use to you. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.